こうくん。私もこうくんがちゃんと。
本当に殺されるんじゃないかと心配してたから。こ
うくんが惚れるような吸血。
Wow. That kiss, am I right? I think so, absolutely. You know, as the summer season has really just come to a close, right? As we are getting to the final episode of each and every anime that we've been watching all season long during our summertime here, I have been talking over and over as we get to that last episode of the season about satisfaction, right? Being satisfied and being unsatisfied, having a good ending, having a bland ending, having a not so good ending, having a terrible ending. And these are different conversations, different, things that I've been saying during our reviews that we've been talking about these specific anime episodes. And although there was one thing truly missing in Call of the Night, which was buttoning up or wrapping up the story of Nazuna and Ko, this specific ending, if for some reason in the future we don't get a season 2 of Call of the Night, which I'm going to cross fingers, I'm going to cross toes, every other body part you can think of, I'm going to cross it to hope that we do get a season 2. And I have a good feeling that we will get a season 2 of Call of the Night, just simply by, this was a masterpiece. The problem with that, though, is this was an unknown masterpiece, right? In a season to where all I heard about was, Licorice Recoil, it's hard to really kind of fit in there with Call of the Night. But what I have seen on certain rankings and listings for Call of the Night is consistently Nazuna and or Ko are kind of like best girl or best boy, and they're typically within the top 5. So there is a strong chance that this got enough notoriety and enough notice during the summertime to warrant a season 2. Now there will probably be some massive drop off. After today, there'll probably be some massive drop off since the season is fulfilled and completing, but there is a chance though, because High Dive has actually been dubbing this in the West. The only problem is High Dive only takes up maybe a 15%, 10% cake, 10% of the cake of the total anime watchers out there. So that's kind of the problem, is it's kind of stuck on a platform that doesn't have the biggest viewer base in the world. Now, the positive with that, too, is High Dive specifically is in partnership with Sentai Filmworks. So if Sentai comes out and does the Blu-ray for this, which includes the dub, it could get more notice in those cases there. And, if they decide to purchase it and decide to buy it, when it comes to the Blu-rays, it could do better, at least here in the West, and maybe even in the East in Japan, where it kind of comes from. So, all in all, I think that this has a good chance for a season 2, but at the same time, there is always that, minuscule kind of chance of it just not being the case, right? But let's talk about the final episode and why I think it was so good. Overall, I thought this anime was just an absolute masterpiece. It was just so unique. It was such a unique take, such a unique story, a vampire story, a love story. Everything about this specific show was just completely unique and new to this kind of romance, fantasy, vampire type genre that I just felt it was so dope. So the first thing, kind of going with this specific episode, and then I'll kind of touch base on my final thoughts of the whole entire season. But in this episode specifically, I like how initially the colors continued to be bland and they were still gone the whole entire episode. Then we get to see Ko entering Hatsuka, I'm gonna go with Hatsuka's apartment, and we see that he had some individuals there who were he called them brainwashed, but essentially they were followers of his. He sent them away to spend time with Ko. During this time, Ko found out that Hatsuka was a boy, and that was a huge surprise to him the whole entire time. I love how Ko continued, because Ko at this point doesn't really understand love or anything, as he shouldn't. He's 14, he's a child, he's a kid at this point, so it totally makes sense. He doesn't really understand it. So kind of, during the Hatsuka's, scene and stuff, I really like how Ko kind of handled that, where he was like, it doesn't, boy, girl, at this point, it doesn't really matter. His main hurdle is I'm not really understanding this whole love thing. The gender doesn't really have anything to do with it. So I really loved how he handled it. And I also love how he made Hatsuka's, Hatsuka blush as well, too, because he was like, you have such a cute face. He was like, it doesn't matter. And I actually really loved that scene as well. I thought that was a really cool little little cool moment for 𝐒𝐻 and for us, for me and you, the viewer. And then I also love the fan service there too, because they kind of continue to give us a lot of very unique camera angles with Hatsuka's, dress, skirt, whatever the hell it was he was wearing. So I thought that was really cool as well, and I kind of loved that whole entire scene. And I love that he had a breaking point as well during his back and forth conversation about Nazuna and how much she means to him and everything else. And, after he got done talking to Hatsuka's about, turning into a vampire, and he was like, oh, I could brainwash you, blah, blah, blah. I love how immediately once he kind of, once his brain flipped back to Nazuna, the color came back to the world. And I was like, oh my God, this is so effing good. Then he takes off and he runs to go find Nazuna, right? Because he knows that she's in trouble. And at that point, the music comes on. And the music is like the most fire music in the world. Like, it is awesome. Like the style, I think at the beginning of the season we said this anime just oozes style from every corner. Like every corner, crack, and crevice this anime has, it just oozes style, and they continue to be that way here again. We see 𝐻𝐻 run from the cops. I thought that was a cool little nod to his whole detective scenario that he had going on. He jumped off a bridge for them. He ran away. He got away from them. And then the music flips up again. I was like, oh, it goes back to the OP, and I was like, oh, it was the ED. It goes back to the ED music. And I was like, oh, effing yes, let's effing go. Then he ends up showing up, and this was the coolest scene of the anime so far as well. Of this episode of the anime, where he showed up to the vending machine, and the day that Nazuna showed up for him, she was there, hunched over the vending machine, like, oh, you gonna buy that alcohol, whatever. And the roles were reversed this episode. I was like, oh, that's such a cool little touch. And again, it brings us back to that first episode feelings that we had at the beginning of it. Then we had, I think that was the best scene ever. Then we had the color fade again. So again, these little nuances that they have, oh my God, the studio effing nailed it. So then we have the color fade again during the confession, and once kind of 𝐻𝐻 reciprocates some of the feelings that Nazuna was kind of showing him, and he was like, I won't ever let you get bored again. The color comes back once again to the world. So those colors really represent 𝐻𝐻's feelings. When the color fades, it's like his feelings have faded. When the color comes back, it goes by his emotion. And I love how the colors really represent the emotion, because you can really have that, especially when you're a child. When you're younger, you have a very vivid imagination. So those vivid colors represent a vivid imagination. So I absolutely just think that, like, whoever's in the writer's room, director's room, whoever created it is just like, they were just so in tune to these feelings, and oh my God, so good. Then we have the moment where she finally kissed him, and that was kind of how we ended the season. And although there are still some lingering things of like, will they, won't they, when we fall in love, the fact is, at this point where they left off, you could cover a whole nother season, building up to that next point of, will they, won't they, considering it's only been a few months at this point. So we have a year's time frame. So there's so much more that we can work in here, as well as him building relationships with the other vampires that didn't get as much screen time. Him building up, him and Akira, him building up his friends. There's so much other stuff that they could cover here in a season 2. Shit, even a season 3. But regardless, that kiss was a nice little cap off for us to end the season on, and I just think that was like the perfect note. And for me, they absolutely hit a home run. They nailed it. They hit it out the park this episode, and I'm just like, yes, this is how you do endings. This is how you do endings if you never get a season 2. This is how you do endings if you may get a season 2. But you close the door, but you leave it just cracked just enough for you to continue the story. And that's how you do endings. And I think they just absolutely nailed it. So overall, this has been an amazing ride. I've talked about oozing with style. They have the style. They have the music. They have the bops. They have the color. They have the very clear story direction. They spent a lot of time this season building up certain characters. We got like one filler fan service episode with, I forget what her name is, but one of the vampires who like the maid stuff. I think that was probably the most misuse of time this season. Other than that though, specifically, I think that we got, just enough time with the detective. We got just enough time with like Akira. We got just enough time with his friends. We got just enough flashbacks. I think the amalgamation of the whole entire season, easily 9.5 out of 10 for me. I think this just absolutely nailed it. And this will be one of the ones I go back and rewatch again, dubbed. When that happens, it kind of like My Dress Up Darling, I'll probably watch it again, kind of like just background stuff, kind of periodically, until hopefully we get a season 2 one day. But regardless, thank you guys for being with me all season long. I know I ranted on for a while, But you guys mean the world, and I appreciate you guys being here, and I want to know your final thoughts in the comments, and I want to see you during the fall season with the anime I'm covering on the channel, which is on screen now. All right, we'll see you guys in the fall. Peace.